Hey there, my name is Alex Carter. If you're reading this, you might already have an idea of the kind of person I am: a hustler, an entrepreneur, someone who's always looking for the next big thing. At least, that's how I saw myself before everything crumbled. I grew up in a middle-class family, but my father was a dreamer, a hard worker, but with a vision so big that sometimes it felt like he was more focused on the dream than the reality. I was raised in a household where we talked about money often. How to make it, how to save it, and how to grow it. Dad always said that if you wanted to get ahead, you needed to find the next big opportunity and pounce on it, before anyone else. For a while, that mindset worked. I got into stocks and real estate in my early 20s. By 25, I'd already made a comfortable living. Not life-changing money, but enough to feel secure. Enough to start thinking about expanding my horizons. Crypto was just beginning to buzz at that point. Bitcoin had already made some noise, and my father, ever the dreamer, was convinced this was it. This was the next big thing. He was wrong. I remember the night everything changed. I had been playing poker at a local casino in Vegas, trying to unwind after a long week. Dad had always told me that you had to take risks to make big moves, so I was feeling adventurous. I'd been winning for a few hours, but the excitement of the game, the thrill of being on a winning streak, made me feel invincible. I kept pushing my luck. In hindsight, I should have stopped while I was ahead. But that's not how I operated. The desire to multiply my winnings consumed me. My father's words echoed in my head: take risks. Play big or go home. Before I knew it, I was playing at the high-stakes table, the kind where only the big players dared to sit. I was up hundreds of thousands, then $1 million, and it felt like I was unstoppable. But the high didn't last long. Just as quickly as I had accumulated the money, I lost it, along with everything else. I remember staring at the dealer's face, trying to make sense of the numbers in front of me. The pit in my stomach grew larger with every passing second. I had gambled away not just my savings, but my family's wealth, every dollar my father had painstakingly saved, every asset he'd built over the years. I didn't know it at the time, but that was the beginning of the end. When I woke up the next day, I was in complete shock. My phone was blowing up. My father was calling, and so was my business partner, Maximum. The reality hit me like a freight train. The casino's numbers were real, but the consequences? They were too heavy to understand fully at the time. I had blown through almost everything, an amount north of $2.5 million, the equivalent of what I'd spent my life trying to build. It was more than just the financial loss. It was the sense of betrayal. The shame of knowing that I had failed not only myself but my family and my business partners. I felt like an utter failure. If anyone had asked me what was next, I would have had no idea. I had no plan, no safety net, nothing left but the shame of the night before. What came next? A free fall back to the business world. Max wasn't exactly thrilled when I called him to explain what had happened. I could hear the frustration in his voice. Max was the one who kept me grounded in our business ventures. We'd built our e-commerce brand together from the ground up. He was the technical genius behind our dropshipping operations, while I handled the marketing side. Over time, we'd expanded into crypto trading, and I thought we were untouchable, but when I lost everything, the business took a nosedive. We had debts to pay, suppliers to settle, and customers waiting on products. I realized how fragile our empire was. Max was already looking for a way out. He had grown tired of dealing with my failures. And who could blame him? At that moment, I was the type of person you didn't want to associate with, someone who'd gone from hero to zero in a blink of an eye. I had lost not only my family money but also the business. Max and I agreed on a settlement. He took the remnants of our business, and I was left with nothing. At that point, I couldn't even say I had a business anymore. I was just a guy with a broken dream. The thought of starting over was terrifying. I didn't know where to go, who to turn to, or what to do next. I was stuck in the quicksand of my own failures. I had no plan, no roadmap. I just knew I needed to fix my life, or at least try. Lessons learned. In the days that followed, I spent a lot of time reflecting. I used to be that guy who talked about making money in the markets. I was the guy who proudly told friends about the next big investment, the new crypto coin I was buying, or the revolutionary e-commerce strategy one had implemented. But now, I felt like a fraud. I had relied too heavily on quick wins, on risks that didn't pay off. I didn't have the stability or long-term vision that I needed. I had been chasing highs, both literally and figuratively, instead of focusing on building something sustainable. I had failed, but I wasn't ready to throw in the towel. I needed to rebuild, this time, with real wisdom, patience, and a renewed mindset. The road ahead would be long, but I knew it was the only way forward. The first step was obvious. I needed to get my finances together, understand my debt, and formulate a plan to rebuild. The second step, I had to rebuild my confidence. I couldn't afford to let the shame of my losses define me. I wasn't about to let the world know I had given up. It wasn't in my DNA. The path forward. I'll tell you one thing, no matter how dark things get, there's always a way to bounce back. And trust me, this story isn't over yet. The journey was about to get even tougher, but I wasn't going to quit. Not now. Not ever. So stay with me. This story is just beginning. Alright, here's the deal. I could have easily packed it in after everything went down. I could have let the weight of my failures bury me. And trust me, I had my moments where it felt like that might be easier. But something inside me kept saying, you've got one more shot. You can fix this if you're willing to grind like you never have before. That voice, that stubborn spark inside, was what kept me going. It wasn't about getting back to where I was, it was about going further. It was about building something that wasn't going to come crashing down at the first sign of risk. And, to be honest, I didn't really have a choice anymore. The mountain ahead of me was steep, but I had already learned the most important lesson in business: failure is just a part of the journey. What matters most is what you do after it. Rebuilding my finances before I could think about making money again, I had to figure out where I stood financially. I didn't have a lot left, truth be told, I had almost nothing. The remnants of my family's wealth were wiped out, and most of my personal savings were gone as well. I was left with a couple of $1,000s in my bank account and a massive amount of debt from the casino, business partners, and suppliers. I decided to take a cold, hard look at my debts first. I owed around $250,000 between personal loans, business debts, and the money I'd lost at the casino. The fact that I still owed people money felt like a millstone around my neck, but I knew I couldn't ignore it. So, I got to work. I called my creditors. Every single one. I explained the situation. Some were sympathetic, some less so. I managed to settle some of the debts for a fraction of what I owed, while others agreed to extended payment plans. But one thing was clear: I had to make money, and fast. Diving back into the game, you might think that after losing everything, I would have stayed far away from any form of risk, especially with the kind of background I had in high-stakes gambling and volatile crypto markets. But that's not how the world works anymore. If you want to make it, you need to understand where the money is and how to take calculated risks. This time, though, I was smarter. I wasn't going to play games with my money. I needed a real plan, a structured strategy. I needed to become not just an entrepreneur, but a problem solver. The kind of person who didn't just react to market trends but anticipated them. E-commerce, crypto, and dropshipping. The first thing I decided to do was get back into e-commerce. But not the way I had done it before. No more half-hearted dropshipping with generic products. I was going to sell real products, backed by a genuine brand. I did some market research and found a niche I knew was growing: eco-friendly products. People were becoming more conscious of sustainability, and I could see the potential in it. But I needed to do it right this time. I wasn't going to just find a supplier on AliExpress and start selling. I spent the next few weeks researching suppliers who could provide high-quality, eco-friendly goods at a fair price. It took longer than I'd anticipated, but I wanted to make sure my products would actually deliver value to the customers. I built a simple website on Shopify, keeping it clean and easy to navigate. I didn't want to get fancy, I wanted something that was functional and would deliver. At the same time, I dove into crypto again, but this time with a more measured approach. I started small, buying up low-cap altcoins that had real-world use cases, focusing on projects that solved real problems. I wasn't going to gamble on speculative coins anymore. I understood the importance of research, community, and long-term investment. I also began to get more serious about DeFi, decentralized finance, protocols, earning passive income through staking and yield farming. The third leg of my strategy was dropshipping, but I was smarter about it this time, too. I leveraged social media and content marketing to build trust with potential customers before they even bought anything. Instead of just running ads, I created content that educated people on the products I was selling, the value behind them, and why they were worth their money. It was a grind, though. I spent hours on research, reading, learning, trying to understand the new trends in the markets I was playing in. I stayed up late working on my e-commerce business while researching cryptocurrency trends and keeping an eye on market shifts. But I knew I had to do it this way, no shortcuts. I had no room to fail again. The first glimmer of hope after about 3 months of intense effort, things started to click. My e-commerce business was generating steady sales. I wasn't rolling in money, but I was profitable for the first time in a while. I had learned the art of sourcing better products and working with reliable suppliers, and I was gaining traction with my marketing strategies. My first real breakthrough came when one of my products, an eco-friendly portable blender, went viral on Instagram. I had put in the time and effort into creating quality content that resonated with eco-conscious consumers, and suddenly, I was getting orders from all over the country. I couldn't believe it, but the real win was when I managed to pull $50,000 in net profit from my crypto investments. It wasn't from any huge swing trades or lucky bets, it was from making calculated moves and letting the compounding interest from staking and yield farming work in my favor. It felt like I was finally building a foundation. The real key to making a comeback, I realized, was diversifying. It wasn't enough to focus on just one avenue. The beauty of the modern market was the variety of ways to earn money, whether it was e-commerce, crypto, or leveraging your own skills for side hustles. In the old days, I would have put all my eggs in one basket. This time, I was balancing my efforts across multiple, sustainable streams of income, but even with all that, the work was far from over. I was still in debt, and I wasn't anywhere near where I needed to be to fully recover. I had made some progress, sure, but the hardest part of the journey was still ahead of me. The mental battle. One thing I hadn't prepared for was the mental toll. Rebuilding my finances wasn't just a financial struggle, it was a mental and emotional one. The self-doubt was constant. I'd wake up some days feeling like I was back at square one, unsure of whether I'd ever fully escape the shadow of my past mistakes. There were nights when I'd lie awake, wondering if it was all going to come crashing down again, but then I'd remind myself, you've already been through the worst. You can do this, and so, I pushed forward. I surrounded myself with people who encouraged me and cut ties with those who didn't believe in what I was doing. I stopped listening to the noise, the people who said it couldn't be done, and focused on the things that mattered. The road was long, but the fight wasn't over. I was ready to face whatever came next. All right, here we are, at the end of this journey. Or, should I say, the beginning of something new. Because that's how I look at it. I've learned more about myself, about business, and about life in the last couple of years than I could ever have imagined. What I once saw as the ultimate downfall, losing everything, turned out to be the best lesson I could have gotten. Let me take you through what happened next. Spoiler, it's not a fairy tale. It's not easy, and it doesn't come without its struggles. But, eventually, everything started to align. The power of persistence. After I got my e-commerce business off the ground, after securing some profit from crypto, I still had debts to settle. The first priority was to pay back the people I owed. I didn't want to drag it out any longer. And here's where the real challenge began. I could have easily said, I've got a little cushion now. Time to enjoy some freedom. But I knew that wouldn't solve anything. I had responsibilities, and I wasn't about to fall back into bad habits. So, I doubled down, literally, by reinvesting every penny I made into my businesses. I kept pushing the boundaries of my e-commerce brand, expanding it to new product lines, improving my marketing strategy, and working with more suppliers to scale. At the same time, I was still tracking the crypto market. I wasn't making the huge bets I used to. No, now I was more methodical. I studied the projects that I'd invested in and paid attention to the news, the trends, and the movements within the community. The more I learned, the more I saw how blockchain technology could disrupt industries in a way I had never imagined. I realized I didn't just need to ride the wave, I needed to understand the wave. The big breakthrough came when one of my products, a smart home device that saved energy, started to take off. I had spent months sourcing and refining it. I wasn't trying to sell any old thing, I wanted to offer something people needed. It wasn't about just making a sale. It was about providing value. That's when I started to see the fruits of my hard work paying off in the form of consistent, repeat customers. My crypto investments, too, started to bear fruit. By diversifying my portfolio and keeping my eye on solid, emerging projects, I saw a 400% return on my investments within the next year. That's right. I had turned a small amount of crypto into a small fortune. It wasn't from luck, it was from carefully considering every move I made, but even with all of that, the hardest part was the mental grind. It was easy to get burned out. I still struggled with the weight of my past failures, and sometimes the pressure to succeed felt unbearable. What kept me going, though, was a simple thought: you can't quit now. You're too far in to stop. Facing my fears and gaining confidence at this point, I had rebuilt the business. I had paid off my debts, and I was more successful than I had ever been before. But something unexpected happened. My past failures still haunted me. Every time I looked at my bank account, I didn't just see the progress, I saw the mistakes, the losses, the choices that almost broke me, and then, I realized something crucial. The key to moving forward wasn't just financial recovery, it was emotional recovery. It wasn't about shaking off the past. It was about acknowledging it and accepting it as part of my journey. It's true what they say, you learn more from failure than you do from success. That was never more clear to me than it was right then. I began to seek out mentors, people who had been through similar struggles. I read books, took online courses, and started investing in my personal development. There's no amount of money that can replace the value of a growth mindset, and I started seeing the difference it made. By the time I was in my late 20s, I had turned my business into a multi-million-dollar empire. But this time, I wasn't chasing quick money. I wasn't gambling on the next big thing. I was building a sustainable, purpose-driven company that gave back, that provided real value to people, and that aligned with my values. I had found my true purpose, becoming the man I was always meant to be. As my business grew, I realized that I had to start thinking beyond money. I wanted to leave a legacy, not just in terms of wealth, but in terms of the impact I could make. I wanted to build something that outlived me. I wanted to create opportunities for others, give back to the community, and mentor those who were struggling as I once did. At the same time, I started thinking about how I could become the kind of person who wasn't just successful in business, but successful in life. I focused on my health, my relationships, and my overall happiness. The money, while important, was never going to be enough if I didn't feel fulfilled in every aspect of my life. In the years since my rock bottom, I've learned the importance of balance. I no longer make decisions out of fear or greed. I make decisions based on long-term vision. And the most important thing I've learned: success is not a destination, it's a journey. The final lesson: failure is not the end. So, let me leave you with this final thought, and I'll get out of your way. You might be facing your own struggles right now, or you might have already failed at something that matters to you. You might feel like you've lost everything, just like I did. But let me tell you something, that's just the beginning of the real journey. Failure is not the end, it's an opportunity to start fresh, to learn, and to grow. If you've been knocked down, get back up. If you've lost your way, find it again. The road is long, and it's not always easy, but if you keep pushing, if you keep learning, and if you don't let the mistakes define you, you will rise again, and when you do, you'll realize something amazing. Success isn't about how much money you have. It's about how much you've learned, how much you've grown, and how much you've given back. And that, my friend, is worth everything.